Hi, I'm Tim Krueger from the University of Oxford, and I work on geoengineering there, specifically the research, and we try to do that in an interdisciplinary way. What I'm going to talk about is something known as the termination effect, which relates to particular types of geoengineering or climate engineering techniques that involve reflecting a proportion of the sun's light back into space. So the termination effect is what would happen if you're employing such a technique and then you stop. And this has important implications because whilst we need to understand about research and the issues involved in that, we also need to think of the whole life cycle of a particular technique, and that includes the exit strategy and what that would actually look like in real life rather than just in idealized models. So what is the termination effect? Well, if you imagine you have the level of CO2 rising gradually like this, you would, well not so gradually actually, but if you see it rising, then what you will also expect is to have the level of average temperature increasing at roughly the same rate. The implementation of a solar geoengineering technique could stabilize the temperature at the previous level, despite the fact that the CO2 is higher than it would have been previously. And whilst that would address some of the problems of increased greenhouse gases, it wouldn't address the problem of ocean acidification. But stabilizing temperature would be a benefit in itself. But what happens if you stop at some later stage? You've got a higher level of CO2, but a lower temperature. What would happen if you stopped solar radiation management techniques suddenly is you would get an uptick in the temperature back to where it would have been previously. And so what we need to understand, this is known as the termination effect, what we need to understand is the damage function of that termination effect. So how much damage is done in that very rapid increase in temperature versus the more gradual, still in historical terms very rapid but more gradual increase without solar radiation management. Because in reality we're not going to be able to employ solar radiation management forever. There are some people who say, well, if the consequence of this, of terminating was so disastrous, people wouldn't do it. But unfortunately, that's not the way the world works. We may find that there is some very severe adverse consequence, or there's political disagreement, and that leads to a rapid unimplementation of solar radiation management and this termination effect. So we need to understand that. We need to understand what the exit strategy is. Because if you don't have an exit strategy, you don't really have a strategy.